Good.
Welcome to the Women's March Canada podcast, where making the equality of women in Canada the new norm. This is episode 28, titled From War to Power. My name is Leanne Castellino, and I am your host for this podcast. We are inspiring women, uniting and leading the charge for the advancement of women across Canada, and we are delighted this week to have our guest, Caroline Codsi. Caroline is the president and founder of Women in Governance, or La Gouvernance au Feminin. This is a nonprofit organization that supports leadership development for women, career advancement, and access to boards. A powerful speaker and leader herself, Caroline has won several awards and is listed as one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women. She's also been prominently featured on TEDx. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you, Leanne.
I wanted to start, first of all, with, going back a little bit to your roots. You were born in Beirut and fled a war-torn country. How would you say that has shaped you, being an immigrant to Canada, and how has that shaped you in the decisions that you've made professionally?
Well, thank you, Leanne. Yes, indeed. The war started when I was only 7 years old, and it ended when I was 22. That period is crucial in any human being's life. So I think that one of the most prominent reasons why I've decided to actually work in the field of gender equality and justice, as in general, comes from that. During my childhood in Beirut, I testified of a lot of injustices. I would say that women were those that were the most discriminated against. One of the very first realizations that I ever had of that situation was when I would testify of maids, or testify or be the witness of, I should say witness, sorry, I'm translating as I go in my head, witnessing women being discriminated against, especially maids, for instance, coming from Sri Lanka or the Philippines. They were often abused, they were often beaten, raped, their passports confiscated. There were a lot of very alarming things for a child to see at that age. And I always had in my mind that Canada was going to be very different. And it is, of course, very different. And when I came here, I discovered a wonderful country of equality, of justice, of peace, security. I feel safe in this country. I am extremely grateful every day for the life that I've had here. But as my career progressed over the past 20, almost 8 years that I've been here, I actually quickly realized that there are certain areas of our society that are still brutally unfair towards women. So I made it to senior roles at a relatively young age, where I became director, senior director, then vice president, up until my last role where I was executive vice president of Canada's largest medical expertise firm. So during my progression, I realized that there were less and less women around me. And this is why I actually decided that, first of all, I needed to do something about it, not only try to encourage more women to come on board, but also encourage men to understand the reasons why they need these women. And finally, Leanne, I would say what shocked me the most is that people don't actually realize what's going on. For a lot of people, they have that sense that there are so many powerful women around us, and there are, that they think that it's all taken care of and that we've reached equality. But the truth of the matter is there's only 5% of women CEO in Canada, and there's only 14% of women on corporate boards. So these statistics are alarming, and this is what has really encouraged me to take a stand and found Women in Governance.
So it's very interesting, when you were going through your professional life and, climbing up the ladder, as it were, and getting onto boards and things, and you looked around and didn't see others like yourself, what inspired and motivated you to continue that climb?
Well, I've always had a lot of ambition. I think what I went through during the war, and I've had to flee the war when I was only 17 years old. I went to Paris. I had no money. couldn't even call my parents because at the time during the war, there were no phone lines functioning properly. So I've really had to find a way to put myself through school. I had 2 jobs, and finding housing in Paris is brutal for anybody. So imagine a 17-year-old with no track record, no money. It was very hard. And at that time, I didn't find it hard. I thought it was exhilarating to be in Paris. I looked at all the positive aspects of it. And although a lot of people around me thought, how are you going to make it? I thought, no, you just watch me. And I had that ambition and that courage, that perseverance that are required, and resilience, obviously. And then I thought to myself, how come boys or men seem to be on that same path, and very often women were falling off? And although there are so many ambitious women out there, I could pinpoint certain characteristics or issues that were, let's say, obstacles on their road. And my desire was to help them overcome them, help them identify them at first and overcome them. And because I always had a very good ear with men, I have a lot of male CEOs in my network that have always been extremely supportive. I figured I could play that role of getting men and women to talk more about the issue, and each had something to work on. Men had to stop trying to find people who look like them, talk like them, dress like them, to put them around the boardroom table. And women had to overcome their fears and actually say yes when they're asked, and just recognize their contribution, recognize their value, ask for a promotion, ask for a raise, and you're going to get it.
Mm-hmm. So that led you then to finding or founding Women in Governance in 2010.
That's right.
And the world has changed so much in those 8 short years, right? What would you say are you most heartened by? Are you most encouraged by since the time you started this company till here we are today, in terms of what you're trying to do to get women advanced?
Well, Leanne, I would tell you that the Me Too movement has been most helpful. Right now, we're in an era where everybody has conscience that there needs to be a change, that women need to contribute, at a greater level in decision-making bodies. I was very fortunate to have thought of all these things 8 years before what's going on now, because the nonprofit organization that I founded at that time has now become a robust organization with many different programs, major events that we organize. We had Hillary Clinton a couple of times an interview with me. I've had a lot of major CEOs from here and international as well. We've got also a very robust mentoring program that is aimed to women who are already at the VP level and want to become CEO. This is very new. I mean, traditionally, people would go to younger women thinking we need to coach you, mentor you, etc., but they would leave behind those women that they thought had already made it because they're a VP at a big bank or an insurance company. But these women did not get to the highest level. And why do we think they shouldn't get there? So this is where we're working, at the very top of the pyramid. We've also got training in governance, because we don't want any woman to say to us that they're not prepared, or any men to say to us that they cannot find women that are properly equipped to sit on a board. And finally, the parity certification that we launched last year that is now national. We have in 2017, we certified 17 organizations in what they were doing to allow women to progress from entry level all the way to the executive committee, creating a pipeline of female talent. This year in 2018, we're probably going to have double the number of certified organizations. So we're at a time where everybody agrees that it's necessary, that we need to work on it. And we've been ready for 8 years. And now it's the challenge is actually to respond to the demand. It's not calling people and convincing them that they need to do this. okay, hiring and working on all those programs that we've created to just make them more sustainable at a larger scale. So it's a very nice problem to have. It's very exciting. And I'm looking forward to the time where, this will not be longer needed. But to be very honest with you, I doubt that we will ever get there, simply because it seems that on a regular basis, there are little crises that remind us that we could lose the ground that we gained so easily. So we need to keep at it. It needs to be ingrained within our society.
It's so interesting because you're a trailblazer in many ways. And just listening to you describe the evolution of your company, it just sounds like the world has finally caught up to what you were talking about, 8 years ago. So looking at sort of tips and advice for women who may watch this and find themselves in a similar situation, they want to aspire to a leadership position, they want to be at the executive level. What would you say are the top 3 tips that you could provide them?
Well, I would say the top number 1 would be networking. So no matter what your education is, what your experience is, what your skill set is, if people don't know who you are, they are not going to nominate you to a major role as a CEO or as the chair of a board or even as a board member of a major board. So you need to network, but you also need to network with the right people. Too many women tend to network amongst each other. See, we do it very differently at Women in Governance. Our tagline is women and men working together to achieve parity, because you need 2 people to be equal. You need men and you need women. So it's essential that women find mentors and sponsors that are not only women, because yes, it's important to have another woman's advice. Yes, it's important to have another woman supporting you through that path. But a man will be a better sponsor because he's already in that decision-making body where he could bring you in or talk about you to others. So this is crucial. I would say community involvement is also something very important. Nobody enjoys a leader who only cares about their revenue, their company's revenues, and works in silo as if the rest of the society didn't exist. So anybody who aspires to a leadership role, to be someone who is visible, absolutely needs to do the right thing, which is get involved in the community and pick their own cause. It can be anything. It needs to be something you are sincere about, because otherwise it's going to come out very easily. And that's also a great way to network, by the way. When you're sitting on a board of a major charitable organization, people see you. People see how you interact, how you prepare your dossier. And I've actually been recruited in the past for major roles through people who would see me at the boardroom table. So, for a nonprofit. So you only do it if you're actually going to contribute and you're going to shine. Otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the foot. The last one I would say is believe in yourself. Actually, can I put 2 in my last one? Because there's 2 important last things that I want to say. Well, one is believe in yourself. You have to be bold. You have to be brave. You have to be courageous. And if you are shy about your accomplishments, if you can't convince someone that you are the right person in the role because you're not convinced yourself, then how is that person going to pick you over the other more assertive, either men or women? But you need to be sure of yourself and overcome your fears. And that is something that for women is not as natural as it is for men. And the very last one, which to me is essential, because we are the bearers of our children. We are those who take time off for maternity. We are those who get up at night. We are those who go to daycare to pick up the kids. I'm very fortunate that, it went very smooth. My children are adults. I have a daughter who's a lawyer at age 22. I have a son who's 21 and who's also finishing his studies and working at the Royal Bank. But I can't say it was a smooth ride. I had choices to make. I was a single mom since the age that they were 13 and 15, and their dad left the country, moved back to France. So at times like that, it's, you know, you might feel like it's going to be impossible. I'm a single mom. How am I going to do this? But the truth of the matter is, if you are very open with your children, if you tell them what you're working on and what motivates you, and if you make sure that your children understand, especially your community involvement, and get involved with you, this is what makes for very strong citizens of the future. So those women who feel, because we're very good to feel guilty, right? We're very good at feeling like, you know, nobody else can take care of our children but ourselves. The truth of the matter is, give them the right values and be open and transparent about it, and be happy about your accomplishments. This is the best way to be, you know, in a positive relationship with your children. And I can't say one size fits all, but this is what worked for me. And, you know, as an immigrant, single mom, somebody who's had a lot of obstacles, yes, you can. Every woman can and should.
Your passion for what you do and how far you've come definitely comes through in everything you're saying. Just in closing, I wanted to sort of ask you the same question, but as it relates to, let's say, women who are at, you know, fairly high up the ladder, for example, but want to get onto a board. What would you say are the top 3 tips that you would advise them?
Well, it's very similar to what I've shared earlier. I mean, it's really about the networking. You need to know these men who are at the boardroom table, so that when somebody decides to leave, they can come in. You also need to be very vocal about the importance of a rotation around the boardroom table. So when you're interested in a board, don't hesitate to say, well, I can see that there's a lot of board members that seem to have been on there for 20 years. I have a very, you know, good contribution that I could bring, because you need more innovation, you need different points of view, you need someone, you know, some fresh blood. I mean, we need to create our opportunities as well, right? And I would say, you know, get ready, do some governance training, take all the courses that you need, think of what your value is. What do I bring to the table? It's not only lawyers and accountants that are needed around a boardroom table. You know, you've got marketing experience, you've got HR experience, it's more and more necessary. You've got artificial intelligence experience. So make sure that you pick what your, you know, your top, I would say, differentiators are, because, you know, we all have a certain experience, we all have certain university degrees, but what makes you unique, and find unique ways to share those accomplishments, so you can be seen as someone who is going to make a difference if they recruit you on that board.
Wonderful advice. Caroline Codsi, President and Founder of Women in Governments, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Leanne. It was an honor.
And thank you to everyone who is watching and tuned in today. Your comments are always welcome. You can subscribe to Women's March Canada's channel and receive updates every time a new video or podcast is updated or uploaded. Our mission across Canada is to stand together in solidarity with our partners and children for the protection of our rights, our safety, our health, and our families, recognizing that our vibrant and diverse communities are the strength of our country. This is the Women's March Canada podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Women's March CDA, and our website is womensmarchcanada.com. I'm Leanne Castellino. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.